Hey everybody. So last week we finished our beautiful bag that we're going to be giving away this week. So make sure you follow us on Instagram and enter. It'll be, the post will go up today. All you have to do is leave a comment, follow us, and leave a comment under the post to be entered into the giveaway. But the one thing we need for this bag is a shoulder strap. Now I figured a shoulder strap is kind of a universal thing that a lot of bags need. So we are going to use some spring clips and a center bar roller buckle. And we're going to make kind of a combination. We're not going to make a super quick shoulder strap where nothing is stitched, but we're not going to make a fully stitched in line strap because I know that's like a very intense project. So we're going to do a kind of a combination. We're going to use some 12-ounce Herman Oak. We're going to use a little bit of this as a shoulder pad and kind of bring in that two-tone that echoes the two-tone of our bag. We're going to bring some of that beautiful natural veg out on top on the shoulder strap to give a little bit of contrast. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to start making our shoulder strap because that's kind of the most involved thing. We're going to be stitching a lot of that on. Okay, so I think I said we're going to start by making the shoulder strap, which is not totally false. We are making a shoulder strap, but we're going to make the shoulder pad first. And to do that, we're going to just use this chunk of leather here. And our shoulder pad is going to be the thing that holds our strap, and it's a little bit wider, kind of like a snowshoe. So it takes the pressure of the bag and spreads it out, which is why they're kind of important. You can make a thin strap, but if you have any sort of weight in it, it's going to be a little uncomfortable. The size of our strap, our total strap, is going to be dictated by the size of our hardware. So this hardware, I think it's 3/4 inch, it's 3/4 inch. So we just need to make sure that we have a 3/4 inch opening for our main strap to slide through on our shoulder pad. I am going to go with a 2-inch shoulder pad for a 3/4 inch strap. That'll give us plenty of room, or it'll spread everything out, but it won't be too big because we don't know how large the person who's going to win this is, and it is kind of easy. You don't want something too bulky and big. So if you're making some, like I'm 6'4", right? So I usually make a 3-inch shoulder pad for my own bags. But someone like Kaylina, who's more normal person size, a 2-inch strap will be perfect for, or 2-inch pad would be perfect for her. So a 2-inch is nice standard size to go with. You could go 2.5 as well. And then for length, I'm gonna go 9 inches. Is that a little bit arbitrary? It is, but I always usually go 9 inches, and I always usually really like how that works as far as tucking over your shoulder without being like too intrusive on the front or the back. And there we go. So now we need to round these corners off. So we're getting a little bit fancy on this. So you can do the shoulder pad in any way you want. I'm sure you've seen a very popular way to do it is you just take one piece, cut 2 slot punches in it, glue it to another piece, and then you slide your strap in one slot punch and out the other. What I like to do is I cut, so we're going to have a 3/4 inch strap. It's going to be this big. And I like to sew, get a little ornamental with it, and sew a strip onto my shoulder pad. Then we'll sew all of this onto a backing so that you have that extra layer of leather in there, which molds really nice. This is a bag that I just made myself recently, and you can kind of see this is what we're going for. So on the back, you have this nice beautiful shoulder pad, and on the front, you can see our strap goes through this, but you have the double stitch line, so it just kind of looks more fancy. But you can also see how I adjust this in size to my own body shape, how it's a bit bigger than this one, because I'm a bit bigger than a lot of people. So this is kind of the vibe we're going for. We're not going to do a fully stitched strap and lined. You can if you want, but I think this is a nice sort of in between. If you are making them for yourself, that's one thing. If you have a customer that just doesn't have the budget to put 7 or 8 hours into just the strap, this is a nice way to go because you get a little bit of hand stitch detail, but you can save a ton of labor for that customer by going with just a thick, unstitched overall strap that'll stay just as strong as a stitch strap will. So the next thing we need to do is we need to burnish this, and then we're going to get it centered and taped down so we can get this stitched first. So to make sure that we're going to use our basting tape to tape this. Not going to glue it because it's floating in the center of something, so the basting tape will let us move it around if we need to. I have my dividers set to give me, it's like 0.375 or something inches. And I'm just going to run a line down on both sides 1 inch in, because remember, this is 9 inches and that's 7. And that way, we'll make sure that everything is perfectly centered when we tape it down. So let's get that done right now. And so there is our strap guide, I guess you would call it, sewn in. Now I didn't bevel this edge, and that's because on our bag we didn't bevel the logo edge so that we would have some sharper shadows to kind of play with the contrast or create contrast, because we don't have any color differences. And excuse, this is kind of scuffed up because I still haven't done the final conditioning and stuff yet. But we carried that to our strap so that just a little design detail that will kind of make your eye bounce back and forth between, you know, the bag and the strap. So now what we need to do is we have a chunk of leather here, and we're going to glue this pad down onto another full thickness piece. Now, if you're using something like natural veg or something, this is a sort of a tumbled leather, it's very soft. So I'm actually not going to skive anything. I'm going to keep this full thickness because remember, all the weight of our bag is going to be sitting on someone's shoulder, and this is the only cushioning that we have. So if we keep this all full thickness throughout, and I know it's just a little detail to skive and all the, you know, the force is going to be mostly in the middle, but I like leaving it full thickness just to give that much more leather to mold into the shoulder. That's why we're doing this, right? It'll break in and then it'll be really comfortable. So we'll get this glued in, and then same thing, we're just going to stitch around the whole thing. Remember, when you're gluing long stuff like this, start at one end and push down, and you just kind of keep air bubbles out that way. Not that you get huge air bubbles with leather anyway, but it just makes it a little bit nicer.
Maybe.
And so I started stitching right here on this because when I come back around, and I have a silly amount of thread because I'm going to try to do this all in one go, but I'll be able to put my back stitch right here. Now we're going to make the back stitch pretty. It's usually not very noticeable. There's one right there. But anytime I can hide it, there's going to be a strap right there. So anytime I can hide it, I always kind of take that opportunity just because it'll make everything look that much more cohesive. So once we have our pad, our shoulder pad all sewn up and burnished and stuff, now we have to do our strap work. And we're going to start by using our strap cutter. This is a pretty simple hand tool. You just set it, this slides left and right, and it sets the width of your strap. I've put a fresh blade in. You want to make sure you keep your blades nice and sharp on these. And I have some, this is about 8-ounce veg tan here. And I figure a 2-tone strap will kind of bring some of the interior veg tan that we line the bag with on the outside. So I'm going to cut I always cut like a couple extra straps and then pick out the nicest one. And that should do us. So we're going to make the small side of the strap first, which is going to be fully stitched and include our buckle and one of our snap clips. The other side is going to be our long side that goes fully over your shoulder. That's not going to be stitched, but it is going to have just a snap clip on one end. That's a super simple part to make. This is the most kind of complicated part. So this is going to be our short strap side, and we have to remember it needs to be short because you want it to hit. You don't want it to come up to your shoulder because it's going to have all this hardware on it with the buckle. So it needs to be really short. I always just do them at 18 inches. So they end up being 9 inches because we're going to fold this into itself because we have to put the buckle on one end and the strap and the clip on the other. So I'm just going to cut this at 18 inches. And that's all we need for this one. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to skive both ends because we're going to do a lap joint in the center of our buckle, or of our strap. So we'll cut that side like that. Then this side you can do either way. I usually cut it on the top. And then that way, when we overlap them, we get a nice even lap joint there. So what I've done is I've folded this all together so that I know it's going to fit exactly as I want it to. And I've put my bends in. So now I know where my buckle is going to go. We're using a center bar buckle. I like to use center bars on shoulder straps because you don't need to make a keeper that way. If you want to do a keeper, then you can use a regular heel bar buckle or whatever. I'm going to cut a slot punch right now. And if your slot punch isn't long enough, this requires a little bit of a longer slot punch. You can just punch it once and then move your slot punch down like halfway and punch again. And then you have a nice long slot punch without needing to buy a new tool. So we're going to put more of our nylon fabric that we used in the last video on both of these joints, and we'll punch through it so you can't see it. Then we're ready to glue everything up. Pretty simple. So sometimes it can be a little bit difficult because remember, if you watched last week's video, well, this can also be just difficult to unstick. But when you're installing your nylon backing, you ideally want to install it with the piece folded if it's going to be folded permanently. But sometimes, like on this side, we're going to have to install it kind of flat. And in that case, it's not ideal, but it works just fine. You just kind of smush it down. So this side's good, and now notice it holds its shape when we try to unfold it and it comes unstuck. And that's why you really want to make sure you stick it folded, because you risk having bumps. But this is a really thick piece of leather. Honestly, this is kind of a little bit extra. We don't necessarily need to do this, but I want to make sure it's as strong as we can make it. And the only goal here is to put this down. We're going to put some rivets in, and the only goal here is to make sure that this nylon goes down far enough to catch a rivet. That's what's going to just keep it, because it's not going to be stitched. The rivet will hold it. So I'm going to do the same on the other side, but I'm going to do it flat because of the buckle. And I'm going to put it right over the slot punch, then I'm going to come back and re-punch the slot punch so that we don't have nylon and we can fit our buckle. And next is our buckle. So our buckle, we want it to go on like this, with the roller facing up as this is folded over. So I'm going to just put it through like this. Put our tongue through there. That goes there. There we go. Now we want to pay very close attention to make sure that our lap joint is lining up really nice. And it does. And then we stick this guy down and hammer him, and then we'll get into the riveting and the stitching and all that good stuff. So I'm going to rivet this first because it'll hold all of this down so we can get a good stitch line in. And I'm going to kind of just eyeball it. I usually do this. You can measure it, of course, if you want to. but I just eyeball it because I want to get this rivet as close as I possibly can to that fold. And I just put the little rivet cap on top, center it, and then I press down to make my hole. And that way I can just punch through and I know that the rivet's going to fit. So we put our cap through and we put our back on. And then we'll go set that in a minute. We have to do the other one first. Same thing, except this is going to be a little bit closer because we don't have the slot punch there. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to go in with my rivet cap first. And I'm going to get it as close to that edge as I can. It's going to be about there. And then punch it. Now we're ready to set our rivets. So if you want to do a really simple version of this strap, of course you could just round this off and just rivet these and you're done, but we're going to make it a little fancier. So I'm going to mark my stitch line. And then we're going to punch and stitch this strap. And here we go. So this is the most complicated piece of the strap by far because it's all stitched. You can see our nice lap joint. Just keeps everything kind of the same level. So we have our shoulder pad and our buckle strap, I guess you could call it. Now we need to make basically the meat and potatoes of the length of the strap. And we're going to do that with some 12-ounce belting leather because we're not going to stitch it. And I'm doing that because I want to show you that there are different levels of strap you can do. You can make a whole strap without stitching at all. You can just cut straps and rivet. You don't, cut it a little bit wider, don't use a shoulder pad. We're going to kind of do a combination of everything to put it together to have a little bit of fancy and a little bit of just pure utility. So the first thing we need to do, this is a very long strap, probably like 60 inches maybe, the hide's really big. The first thing I'm going to do is on one side I'm going to attach our second snap clip with a little bit of nylon and a rivet, and that's the only attachment point we have on this entire strap. So I'm going to skive this down a little bit because it's 12 ounces and folding it over is kind of not super comfortable. But the first thing I'm going to do is just get a rough curve on the end. We'll probably repunch this after we skive. But it's nice to just take the little scrappy end off first. And now we'll get our skiving knife out. With a French edger on this one because we want to remove an even amount throughout the whole piece of leather. I don't know how sharp this is. I might have to sharpen it. Oh, we're good. And I'm actually going to just go and bring this to my sander. I like to just sand this down after I've used the edger, the French edger, because I'm really bad with it. So I'm going to sand this down a little bit, and then we'll be ready to fold it over and rivet. So I have a little bit more of our nylon tape here, and our bend is going to be here with our spring clip. So I'm going to start it down here, and then I'm going to bend it so we can get our curve. Let's just stick that in there. And we're good to go. So this is going to slide on here, and I'm just going to eyeball I'm going to eyeball the first rivet, and then I'm going to place the next one probably 3/4 of an inch below it. So I left this open so you can just see, right, even though we're not stitching, the rivets are catching this nylon fabric. So once we get everything riveted together, The nylon is going to take a lot of the force of the bag hanging from our snap clip. So I'm going to get these riveted real quick, and then we'll come back and finish the edges. So we have our 500,000 subscriber giveaway bag here, and this is going to be the strap for it. So we need to size our big strap. So we're going to clip our small strap to one side, and we're going to clip our big strap to the other side. Now ideally you'd be using a model for this, not a model, whoever's going to own the bag. We're going to just do a general sizing. So what I'm going to do off camera is I'm going to kind of take this, drape it around Kaylina, get a good size, and then we'll measure down and punch our sizing holes here so that the strap ends about right here, covering this whole strap. Because we're using a center bar buckle, we don't need, sorry, this side. Because we're using a center bar buckle, we don't need a keeper, so it'll hold it down nice and flat, and it'll give people a bunch of sizing options depending on how tall they are. The strap sized, I'm going to go up 4 inches, and I'm just going to make holes every inch. And if you were making this for one specific person, obviously you could just size it directly to them, but I don't know how tall the person who's going to win this bag is. So I'm going to make 8 to 10 holes just so we have a whole bunch of options. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 holes sounds good. And then you want to make sure that you're using the right hole punch to fit, I believe it's called the tongue of the buckle, which mine is on the other workbench. So I'm going to go grab that and then we'll punch those out. I'm going to use this oblong hole punch, make it a little fancy. To burnish straps, it can be a little cumbersome to hold. This is how I like to do it. This is, oh, there's a lot of dog hair. This is just a wool dauber and water. And I'm only using the wool dauber because it makes it easier to apply. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, not soak, but dampen both sides of the strap. And I've burnished, or I've not burnished, I've beveled and lightly sanded these edges. You gotta be fairly quick with this because we want both sides to be kind of damp while we do this. Next, I'm gonna take, this is just canvas, and I'm gonna take this strap into my hands with the canvas wrapped around it and pull. And we're just going to do that over and over again. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of locking in between like this knuckle and this knuckle. I'm kind of locking those strap ends. I don't know if you can see that. And pushing. And then we pull the strap through. And you can switch hands, or you can flip it over as well. Sometimes one side gets a little more burnished than the other when you're doing it this way. And there we go. We have a nice burnished edge on both sides, and it's really quick. So that's it for this strap. So it's the next day, as you can see by the beautiful bright sun on the workbench that we usually try to avoid. But what I did was I put a little bit of water on this and put the strap on, so it's basically wet molded. And so you can see the whole strap. So this is a nice hybrid way of getting some stitching detail in, but if you use a nice thick saddle leather for the main strap, it'll save you a couple hours in labor. You know, people have different budgets if you're making it for a customer or whatever. So with that, our $500,000 bag project is now officially fully complete, and we can clip our strap on, and you can see the interior matching the veg tin. Oh, sorry. The interior matching the veg tin. This is why we don't film early in the morning, but we had to get this done real quick. And with that, our bag is done. So remember to head over to our Instagram account. That's where we're going to put up this post today, so Friday. That you can comment on for the giveaway. That's how we're just going to do the quick giveaway over there because it's easier than doing it on YouTube. And ultimately, we're well past 500,000 subscribers now. in the month since we started this project. So thank you guys so much for watching this and every one of our videos, and we will announce the winner and see you in the next one.